thank you all so much. I think people are a little pissed off, maybe. Sorry. I'm a grandma with a potty mouth sometimes. With the postcards that you're filling out, if you would put your name and contact information on it, that would be amazing. And that we will be delivering those to one of her offices. So you might notice that there's an empty chair up here at the speaker's table that we reserved for Representative Miller Meeks. I was trying to find when her last town hall was, and if anyone has a different date, I have August 15th of 2023. We are tired of having to get secondhand news about her action. I had a gentleman blogger talking to me earlier today, and he said, well, I get a newsletter from her. Well, good for you. I would like to talk to her. She needs to hear from her constituents. So that's what we're going to do today. We are going to hear from our panelists. We're going to take questions from the audience. We'll have a conversation about what she's doing and not doing in Washington. So we know across our state, people are working hard every day and just want a fair chance to provide for our families and live a good life. The bottom line is Representative Miller Meeks works for us. We pay her salary. But instead of fighting for an economy that works for us, workers, veterans, seniors, families, who's she siding with? Corporations and the ultra wealthy. She's turning her back on the working people of Iowa, giving wealthy and corporations the big tax breaks while we foot the bill. From big ag, big pharma, and big oil, she consistently votes for bills that are bad for working Iowans, but good for the very richest individual and corporations. So in fact, she's aligning herself with big business over those who voted for her. She recently posted about the honor of personally greeting President Trump at his joint address to Congress. She is quoted as saying, his speech was a much-needed reminder that strong leadership is back and the American dream is being restored. Raise your hand if you think the American dream is being restored. She continued with the economy, blaming the former administration for grocery prices, gas prices, and more, commenting under Trump's leadership, manufacturing is returning, interest rates are coming down, and businesses, both large and small, are gaining confidence again. It sounds like a comedy routine. We saw it before and we'll see it again. When we cut taxes, eliminate burdensome regulations, and empower workers, America thrives. How's that working out for you?
Very well.
It seems to me that she might need to spend a little more time listening to her constituents here in Iowa, instead of, as she says, feeling optimistic and energized for the future. She went on to say Iowans know what it means to work hard, raise families, build businesses. Maybe she should listen to those Iowans rather than, as she said, continuing to work alongside President Trump and his best friend, Elon Musk. So what can we do? We can work to preserve and protect Medicare and Social Security.
Yes.
We can make sure that every Iowan has access and can buy the food they need.
Yes.
We need to lower the cost of prescriptions for all Iowans.
Yeah.
For example, I have a disease called gastroparesis, which means my insides are paralyzed. There's a medication I can take. I went to pick it up the other day, $8.33 a pill that I take once a day. I looked in Canada, I can get 100 for $78. Yeah, that's our healthcare system. And we need to expand access to mental health services. We need to pass a national paid leave program and make child tax credits permanent. We need to increase and protect funding for vital public health agencies and programs instead of taking a chainsaw to those places that we all depend on. We need to prioritize environmental justice and infrastructure funding implementation and future investments. We need to increase access to clean water and the impacts of climate change. And we need to support the Inflation Reduction Act and the Affordable Care Act and all they have done for Iowans. In short, we need to tell her to remember she is in Congress to work for all of her constituents, and we deserve to hear directly from her. I have a mantra. I don't know if you can see it. It said, it shouldn't have to happen to you for it to matter to you. I try really hard to live that mantra. So we have a wonderful group of panelists here today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I'm going to wander around behind them and freak them out probably. And as you're listening, and if you have a question, a comment, fill out your postcard, make sure you put your contact information on it, and I'll be back.
Hello, nice to see everyone. My name is Frank Rose. Today I've got some information I'd like to share with you about the Local Food for Schools program. My name is Frank Rose. I'm here to give you a little bit of information about the Local Food for Schools program, which is no longer. It was cut about a month ago. It's an excellent program, and I think we should have had a representative to fight for it, and we should have someone to bring it back. So I'm going to tell you all about it.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mike Owen. I'm Deputy Director of Common Good Iowa, and I'll be here to talk about all the tax cuts that you won't be getting. And others might.
This takes a little effort anymore. My name is John Morrissey. I'm a local citizen.
Hey, John.
Been your county attorney and your city attorney, but I'm here speaking as a private citizen. I'm going to talk a little bit about state and federal partnering and funding and what's going to happen with SSI, the way they're treating it, and the fact that nobody's advocating for our most vulnerable people. Hence, we no longer have the Genco workshop. Hence, we have people that are worried about them closing down places like Jackson Point and the residential living programs here in town.
Mike, by your mouth.
I'm
John.
sorry, I will do better. Anyway, I will talk to you about some federal and state funding situations and what looks like it's going to happen.
Hey everybody. I'm Tommy Hexter. I am the Policy Director for Iowa Farmers Union. And as we know, America needs farmers. And the kind of government programs that our government funds for farmers determines what kind of farmers we have. So I'm here to talk about our government farm programs and what our government needs to do to make sure Iowa has a prosperous future.
Hi, my name is Gregory Connor. My family and I moved here during the pandemic, and we're Missouri transplants. So I do live by the Missouri motto, show me. And this community has shown us in the going on 5 years that we have lived here, what an amazing community this is of people. And this is awesome, seeing everyone come out like this. Just a common citizen, and well, I'll go into my story later on, but I'm very grateful to be here with everyone. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jenny Connor. I'm Greg's wife, and as he said, we've been here about 5 years now. And my background is a social worker. I've worn many different hats over the years, and now I do mainly elder care in the community. And I just want to be here for an advocate for the vulnerable, the people that kind of live on the margins, and encourage people to
By your mouth, right by your mouth.
people to check on them. So I'll be giving a few stories about maybe what it's like for people when they're isolated in their home. Thank you all for being here.
Hi, I'm John McCurley. I've lived here for 15 years, but I worked for 10 at the University of Iowa Labor Center, which got doged before Doge before Doged. But I'm going to be here mostly to try to put all this into historical context, particularly the attack on federal and public sector workers, and to sort of tell a story about both the past, but also a little inspiration for what the future can tell us about how we can get back to changing the world back in the direction that we all want it to be in.
Thank you for all introducing yourselves. He brought up an important point. I collect stories. We can listen to facts and figures all day long, and we need the facts and figures to support the stories, but it's the stories that people remember. And so if you have a story and you would like to talk to me, I would love to hear it. And we even have a national group that is willing to video and put it out for everyone to see. So if that's something you're interested in, I'll be here afterward. My cards are on the table back there, and just get in touch with me. So I think we're going to kick off.
Can I piggyback on that 1 second? If there are any billionaires in the audience, we want your stories.
Good one. We were just talking about putting together a have yachts and have nots event. So our first panelists today are, Jenny and Greg Connor. So I'm going to let you kick it off there.
So a little bit about my background.
They can't hear you. Right up by your mouth, Jenny.
So as I said, we've been here about 4.5 years. I'm from Missouri. I was a social worker on and off for about 20 years, doing different things. I've worked with people in their homes who are developmentally disabled, people with Down syndrome, people with Prader-Willi syndrome.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Right up on you, right up by your lip. There you go.
So, helping them get out in the community, find jobs, talking to family, talking to other people that are part of their treatment team. I've done work in nursing homes. I've worked in recreation. I've worked in social services. I've helped assess if people need to go to the skilled part of nursing home, which is pretty common. When people go into nursing home, often they decline and they need a higher level of care. Worked in mental health with adults in the community, helping them with a variety of different things, securing Social Security benefits, SSI, SSD, Medicaid, getting to appointments, getting out in the community, maybe getting a job, helping people secure housing, meeting with treatment people, continuity of care, so other doctors and psychiatrists and on and on. So now I'm doing elder care. I kind of fell into that, moving here, and I've been doing that for about 5 years now. People with dementia, Parkinson's disease, macular degeneration. And so I just want to speak a little bit about what I'm seeing with people in a good system, under whoever you want to say, Biden or whoever. not Trump, it's hard even to live in a good system with our healthcare here in the United States and some of the systems that we have. So for instance, you know, back in Missouri, I would try to help people get on healthcare or Social Security, and there would be a back pay that they would get, and then I would have to help them spend all that money because they were not allowed to keep any money in the bank. Now this is 15 years ago. I don't know what it's like there, and I don't know, this is Missouri. I don't know what it's like in Iowa because I haven't dealt with that end of it. That's a good system. That's under a good system. So, you know, these are people that would apply for benefits, and if I wouldn't have been there, they may have not followed through because the paperwork, you get the paperwork and then you have a week to turn it in. If someone can't get to, you know, to the office or whatever, or get it in the mail, you know, they don't get the benefits. So, but the thought of people like actually not having those benefits is very grim and very dire. I cannot even imagine. I just heard that Meals on Wheels was canceled here in Fairfield. I used to volunteer and do that with my daughter when she was little, and took longer than I thought because, you know, people are very isolated and lonely, and I'd be at the door talking to them for 15 minutes. And so I don't know what people are going to do. We have people that use transportation services here. Don't know what's going to happen with that. I think it's still going on. And then all the people that work at the hospital, our local hospital, I mean, that serves a lot of you in here, I'm sure, but like the surrounding all these little towns that are around here. I recently was talking to some of the physical therapists and occupational therapists at the hospital. They live in Dowds, they live in Stockport. I mean, where are these people going to work if our hospital closes? Where are people going to go to get care? This is happening around the United States. I mean, small town, rural hospitals are closing. It's a real thing. So I just want to advocate for these people because they're going to be the first affected. Our disabled people, our people with mental health challenges in the community, our seniors, our elderly. So please reach out to them. Go and check on them. You know, we have a local soup kitchen. I hope you're all aware of that. It's wonderful. Volunteer and help them and give donations. I know they're struggling a little bit now. So things like that. Advocate for these people because I'm not really sure how this is going to play out. I know that we have a lot of elderly people that are isolated in their homes that don't have anyone coming in and checking on them because maybe they don't have children or they don't have, you know, the families are out of town, which is really common now. So please reach out to them. I'll give you one example. I take care of a woman, she's 93, really strong, really robust person. But she said to me more than once, she said, you know, everyone's so proud of me because I made it in my 90s. And they're like, oh, you're going to be 100. And like, I'm this token grandma that, you know, I'm going to be like 100 years old. And she goes, but no one really asked me, like, how does that make me, like, how do I really feel about that? And I think what she's saying is, you know, her husband's gone. A lot of her friends are gone. Siblings are gone. I mean, these are people that, you know, they're isolated in their homes. So just wanted to give my experience in working with vulnerable people in the community. And also, 5 Calls is a great app. If you don't know what that is, you can Google that, and it will give you all the different things that are happening every day. There's usually about 25 different things that come up at a time. You can, you know, download that app and put in.
What was the app?
It's called 5 Calls.
Yes.
5 Calls. It's really comprehensive, and it doesn't take that time. You can click on whatever policy or whatever you want to call about. It'll give you the details. It'll give you a script. It will go to each of your senators. Sometimes you get a clerk, sometimes you don't. And then you can go on, push contact, and it goes to all 3 of them, and you're done. So I would highly encourage, if you haven't done that, that's something you can do at home. But I thank you for your time. It's exciting to see everyone here. Thank you.
No, we're not taking questions from the audience, but thank you. You can write it down.
It was a comment about Fairfield Cares event on the 26th.
Oh, we can do that at the end. Me again. Are there people that really need a chair to sit in? Raise your hand if you do. Because I'm sure we could get some of these younger folks to move. There's a chair here, there's a chair there.
There's a chair. There's empty chairs. There's a chair here.
We could take Marionette's chair, I suppose.
Put her sign on the table there, right?
But no, it would be appreciated if we could just do a 1-minute shuffle, and if someone needs a chair, just wave your hand and we'll make sure you're taken care of.
Hi again, my name is Gregory Connor.
Greg, right on your mouth.
Right on the mouth, okay. Here we go.
Windows or something, it's very hot. Sorry.
That's okay. Again, my wife, thank you, hon. We've been married 33 years, and I'm grateful I get free counseling from my wife every day, and it's really gotten me through. So, okay. All right, thank you. I'll try to. I have, I don't know where to start. I've been working since I was 14 years old. Literally hoping to get my very first Social Security check, direct deposit this month. So yeah, pins and needles here. Yeah, good luck. Get in line. And I know it's not all about me, but I have a rather multifaceted background. I am a U.S. veteran, honorably discharged submariner from the U.S. Navy. Also went into restaurants, started in '77. That grabbed a hold of me. Did that most of my life, and became a certified executive chef in St. Louis area. Also cooked on the submarine. Also in 1990, I became a union carpenter in St. Louis 1310. So, thank you. But it's kind of my credentials. But being a father, this is my second marriage. I got 2 boys, 42 and 40. Have granddaughters, and now we have 2 beautiful daughters, ages 18 and 15. Very concerned, obviously, for all these programs that everyone is in need of, and we're pretty much touching all of that. Like I said, we moved here during the pandemic. I was a chef at a restaurant back where we used to live, and unbeknownst to me, that restaurant got sold without me being even told. In the kitchen working one day, and suddenly a new owner comes in. I'm like, who in the hell are you? That's how that went down. So, looked at Jenny, and we had previously checked out this town to move here. Came to visit, and I'm like, hey, I'm unemployed. Let's do it. So we moved here, and it's an amazing town with really good community. These people stick together, and so I just been doing handyman work ever since living here. But we are on Medicaid. We are low income. I'm just a working class guy. Like I said, just been working since I was 14. We're on Medicaid. I've had to have a double hernia operation since we moved here. I have dental issues out the wazoo. When I was born, they came out with a drug called the tetracycline. They called it the wonder drug. I guess it saved my life, but it ruined my teeth. And so that's where I'm at with that. So I don't smile a whole lot, but it's all good. So we rely on Medicaid. I did fill out all the information to go on Social Security, and I was told that after I'm like 65, then I gotta go on Medicare for insurance. So, yeah, there's that. Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. What am I missing? I mean, there's just all these programs that we all need, and it's under attack. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, liberal, independent, we all need this. And I think I see this whole situation is a true opportunity for all Americans to pull together, regardless of your background. And also coming from a working background, all my relatives are veterans, were veterans. My father served in Pearl Harbor. So it's really tough for me to see what's going on with our veterans, all of these people that are in need. And so I'm just doing whatever I can do to make this a better world. And that's why I'm here. I'm here for all of us. And so one thing I use to gauge as a person is if they really have an understanding of what it's like to be a working class person. Like my wife shared, we do the 5 calls and all of that. Before we did that, I always make it a point to go online and look at the net worth of your senators. You can pull that up. It'll tell you how much they're worth. Millions, okay? I don't know that those people understand. I mean, I know they've worked hard all their lives to get that money, but in my experience, maybe they didn't. Yes. Some did. But they're out of touch.
Yep.
They're out of touch. And so evidently they don't remember what it's like to put food on the table, to wonder if you're going to have insurance, take care of your family, a roof over your head, be able to do all the things you need to do to keep your house up to snuff. You know, we had a hailstorm last year. I reported it on my insurance. They covered everything on the roof, and then all the paint got sandblasted off my home. They wouldn't cover that. So all these corporations just kind of dictate to us what we get, and I'm sick of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Since this is a hands-off event, how about we do, I'll say hands off, you say Medicaid. Hands off.
Medicaid.
Come on. Hands off. Medicaid. Hands off. Medicaid. Hands off. Medicaid. Woo, thank you.
Thank you guys for sharing that story, and I'll just say again, I'm honored to be up here and with all of you folks for America. So I grew up a farm kid on a 2-acre vegetable farm, and that farm no longer exists because my parents couldn't make a living farming and they had to go get off-farm jobs. So now I work for Iowa Farmers Union as the policy director. I represent about 1,200 farmers around the state at the State House and in DC, making sure that we stand for policy that is good for farmers, not for agribusiness corporations. I'm also the manager of a food market, a local food distribution company called Grinnell Farm to Table. We work with about 40 local producers, getting their food to consumers, to food service, including schools and to food banks. Again, America needs farmers, the kinds of government programs that are government funds determine what kind of farmers we have. So just a quick little history lesson, because I don't know that most people know the history of government farm programs. They started in 1933 at the peak of the Great Depression. The FDR administration started to fund government price supports for farmers because the price had dropped so low that farmers were actually pouring their produce and things into rivers. People were going hungry, and farmers were just letting their food go to waste because there was too much supply. So as soon as the government put in those price support programs, the stable income from price supports has allowed for innovation in the farm industry. It's allowed for a stable food supply. And just for reference, from 1850 to 1930, the average acre corn yielded 20 bushels per acre. From 1930 to 2025, that number has increased to 180 bushels per acre. So government price supports work. They help farmers. The major question as we're into 2020s and we have corporate farms and all these agribusiness corporations is, who do the government farm programs support? So up until 2020, commodity farms were the only farms that received price supports through the government. So you had to be growing corn or soybeans or some other commodity. So unfortunately, a lot of the dollars that go out to these commodity programs are given right back to the input companies that farmers are buying from. So farmers get some commodity payment money, then they have to go and buy their seed, their fertilizer, their chemicals, all these things. And so the government's paying out billions of dollars. The farmer keeps this much. The farmer buys all the equipment, the seeds and everything from the corporations, and that's who gets the government money. The farmers don't actually benefit from those programs. So during the peak of the pandemic, the previous administration found out that they could actually give price supports to a different kind of farmer, a small farmer. And they did so through a program called the Local Food Purchasing Assistance Program and the Local Food for Schools programs. So what these did, there's a fact sheet about it I think some folks out there have. These price supports gave state governments money to buy food from farmers and then give that food to food banks and to schools so that it could be used and given healthy food to our communities. And because we have the best soil in the world here in Iowa, we became a nationwide leader in this program. There's over 400 farms signed up to sell food into this program. It started in 2022, and over the past few years, $6 million worth of food has been sold into this program, into schools and food banks. And instead of that money going out to multinational corporations, it stays with our small farmers in our communities and allows young people to come back and farm. So let's fast forward real quick to last month. The Trump administration on March 18th announced $10 billion in economic aid for commodity farmers. They said, we're going to expedite this payment because we know commodity farmers have had a tough time and there's going to be more because we're bringing on tariffs. So they're providing Iowa's corn and soybean farmers with payments of $43 per acre and $30 per acre respectively. If you do the math, 26 million acres of commodity farmland in Iowa, that's roughly $910 million flowing into Iowa through these commodity farm programs. Now, most of this $910 million will flow right out of Iowa into multinational corporations. On March 10th, the Trump administration announced that nearly $1.1 billion, which was allocated for the Local Food Purchasing Program and the Local Food for Schools program through 2028, was canceled. farmers in Iowa, those 400 farmers I mentioned, had been planning for these programs. They had bought new livestock, they had bought new apple trees, they had bought their seeds. There was supposed to be $11.3 million coming into the state for this program, and it would have made a huge difference. So I'm here to ask you, Marionette Miller Meeks, empty chair, are you going to let all of the work that has been done by small farms, food pantries, and schools go to waste?
Yes.
Or are you going to advocate to the USDA and in the Farm Bill that these programs must come back? I think there's note cards to write questions on. I'm sorry, I gotta follow the rules. So, while we're talking about small family farms, these small independent family farms are the farms that are most likely to use conservation programs and renewable energy programs. And organic farms as well. Some of these programs include the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, EQIP, the Conservation Reserve Program, and REAP, Renewable Energy for America Program. All of these programs are currently at risk, and we're hearing that the next Farm Bill is, Republican leadership is going to try and scrap out conservation and nutrition programs. It's now incredibly risky for family farmers to consider doing conservation programs on their farm because they don't know that the payout will be there anymore. So I'm going to ask Marionette Miller Meeks and all of our legislators to stand up for a unified farm bill, including the commodity programs, including SNAP, including conservation programs, and including local food purchasing and local food for schools. Let's keep standing up so that Iowa farms can benefit from our government programs and not large multinational corporations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I thought I heard someone say, why are we here? We are here to gather together as concerned citizens to send a message to Marionette Miller Meeks. She will be getting a copy of the video, the remarks. Anyone that signed in, we're going to give them your information that you put on the sign-in sheet, if that's all right, and ask for a response. And hopefully, we've been doing these. I mean, we had 200 people in Bettendorf a couple weeks ago. We've probably got 200 people here today. Over 300 people here today. And so while this isn't per se a rally, it is a roundtable discussion, and it's an empty chair. And if you do have questions, write them on the cards, pass them, somebody will pick them up, and if we can get to them, we will. And I'm going to turn it over to our next speaker. I think you're an ICANN member.
Hi, I'm John Morrissey. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll repeat, it's great to see 300 plus people at any event in this town, and I've been in an awful lot of events for the last 53 years. About every 10 years we have something that draws the crowd. Sometimes it's a friendly crowd, sometimes it's a mixed crowd, sometimes the crowd's pretty upset. I would say this particular political environment, crowds are pretty upset, and they deserve to be. I'm a local attorney. I'm a Waterloo child, grew up and went to UNI, then the law school in Iowa City. After that, I had the experience of being involved in interning in a couple of legal service offices and working with people over at Davenport. That situation caused me to be partly bilingual. We serviced one of our days each week out of that clinic down at Muscatine with migrant workers. So I know a little bit about immigration, but that's not what I'm talking about today. As far as after that, when I got out of law school, I got drafted, except I'm blind in my right eye, so you can guess I didn't get to go to Vietnam. I did something that was a civilian service alternative and worked 3 years in an Indian legal service program in South Dakota. And that, imagine, that was one of the best experiences of my life, but it was also something that was a precursor of 50 years later. In 1972, my program was federally funded. I wrote the grant each year. In 1972, our then president did something called impounding the funds for the program. And that was Richard Nixon, and he hated legal services. He hated law reform cases. He hated the Indian Civil Rights Act. He hated the things that came out of the Johnson administration and the Kennedy administration. So we were prepared for it, but for me to have a payroll at my office on the reservation, I was blessed to have a banker that lived across the street, or I shouldn't say that, but a banker's son. And I was able to borrow $6,000 and have a payroll while the federal judge, who was the last thing from a raving radical, told Nixon's administration they can't impound that money. Congress enacted that legislation and Congress funded it. Sound familiar? Go forward a year to 1973, we wrote the grant again, and guess what happened again? Impounded again. Nixon was in trouble, but he wasn't in enough trouble yet. And what happened again was the federal judge, several weeks later, enjoined them from that. We did the same arrangement as far as getting payroll borrowed. And at that point, my family and myself decided probably about 3 years is about all we can do out here. We thought it would be safer to go back to Iowa, so accepted a job in Des Moines as a director of the Legal Service Corporation for their appeals division. At that point, guess what happened again? The Iowa Legal Service Corporation was impounded by Nixon. And at that point, the district court out of Des Moines enjoined him a few weeks later, but that didn't do me any good because at that point I had 2 kids. I needed a job. Thank God I had a friend in Fairfield, and I came down here and became your assistant county attorney in 1973, December. After that happened, though, Congress actually, in a bipartisan move, passed something called the 1974 Act Against Impoundment. And that's been the law ever since. And it's still the law. My life in Fairfield has been an enjoyable experience professionally and nice for raising a family. I have one of my sons from Utah is back. I have 60% of the kids and grandkids around here, but he's back from Utah with 2 of the grandkids, and we just got back from Van Buren County in the Dutchman store. So we've all been there too, right? So anyway, for 18 years, I was your prosecuting attorney for the county. 35 years of being your city attorney for City of Fairfield. I also have represented half a dozen other smaller towns, Birmingham for 25 years, Keosauqua for 20, different places that we're all familiar with. And I consider it, the great joy of my life to see grassroots like this and see small town governments really govern themselves. That's what it's supposed to be about. So when you see somebody that thinks he's king and starts telling you that he's above the law and nobody says anything back, You know, that's a pretty good reason to spend your Saturday afternoon with a bunch of people that don't agree. I've been listening to the other speakers, and I identify with various things and various vulnerable citizens in our community. First year I got here, my partner Ed Kelly and I back then, we got involved in a practice with an old man who had been here for 60 years, a guy named Booker Smith. I don't know if any of you remember that name, but Booker and his dad Russell practiced for 110 years here. They loved the community. They were county attorney, city attorney, that kind of stuff over the years and did their parts. But as far as what we had to start with, and from that time forward, we had some families that had vulnerable members. We did guardianships and conservatorships and things having to do with protective payees and things that the Department of Human Services expected us to make sure they were in order for families that had a disabled child. Sometimes it was an adult dependent, but it was part of what the community, and I say this, it was a bipartisan perspective because the legislature we had in the Des Moines State House at that time was a much kinder legislature. And I believe Congress was much more capable of being bipartisan in the 70s, 80s, and 90s than what we're seeing today. But those folks that needed help back then, they still need help now. And I can speak from personal experience also. I'm a parent of a son who at 6 months of age was stricken with spinal meningitis. He's 47 years old now. He grew up deaf, mute, and mentally challenged. He's a great kid. He's very well balanced, and he's tried hard to have different jobs and so forth. But it's one of those situations where without the help of things like AEA, Department of Education funded, things like SSI, which takes care of a subsidized rent program, which this town has been very good about. We've got all kinds of what I would call subsidized and they're specialized hybrid residential arrangements for needy and vulnerable citizens. You'll have 3 or 4 residents living in a family home with house parents. We also have now some multiplex apartment buildings like Jackson Point that is a subsidized federal 202 and Section 8 rental that has as many as 28 challenged residents at a time. And those folks, it's just one example, but they did have for about 40 years, up to the time of COVID, a place called the Tenco Workshop. Back in 1981, we raised about $50,000-$60,000 to remodel Bill Drake's body shop, which the Tenco Foundation was willing to buy the building for us if we could put together a program center. And when I say that I wanted to talk to you about state and federal working together, programs that were blended and worked well in a bipartisan world for many decades. I'm talking about places like the Tenco Workshop. Workshops like that have been in every judicial district in the state, which I know a lot about. But the judicial districts, all during COVID, they had to shut their sheltered workshops. So we lost Tenco here during the COVID, and the way it was funded and the way it was managed, every person from the time they were an adult coming out of high school, or my son coming out of the school for the deaf, they went through something that was an ICP and an IEP. Those are terms that AEA and caseworkers in Des Moines at Human Services and at Voc Rehab and the Department of Labor and so forth, they know what those mean, but they worked well year after year after year from the time we set up the Tenco Workshop in 1981 until COVID. That's 4 decades of good work for adult dependents. In this community, that meant 4 or 5 dozen different dependent adults. And then there were other folks from the surrounding areas that participated. We had wonderful employers centers in this town, factories. I'll throw a few names out, Dexter, Agra, Traffics, it used to be Harper. They all had some jobs that could be contracted to the sheltered workshop. When they did that stuff, the sheltered workshop gave people the dignity of working. They weren't earning full wages or things like that, but it was still great to get a paycheck. I know my kid was, really enthralled with the idea that he was working a real job 4 days a week. Now, after the COVID experience, the Voc Rehab Department, what should have happened, and I'm kind of addressing this in the sense of we're still out here looking at people in our community that haven't fully recovered from COVID, even though there was 4 years of the Recovery Act monies, even though there was another group of monies that came to Iowa called the infrastructure money. These are billions of dollars. There's still a couple $1 billion just sitting up in Des Moines that, quote, from the eyes of the majority party, there's too many strings attached to. That's outrageous. I think our congressman should really be ashamed of the fact that it's just being something to sit on. So. All right. I could talk to you for about 2 hours about this with a special burn. But the idea to convey to Congressman Miller Meeks is she's taken an oath to do a lot of things. In some ways, she's a very nice person and a very special person. She's an ophthalmologist that has a good reputation, but as a doctor, she took an oath, do no harm. She's also a retired military officer, and she took an oath to preserve and protect. She needs to do that. As a congressman, she's supposed to uphold and defend our Constitution and our federal laws. So what she could do is tell Des Moines, instead of firing 39 Voc rehab workers and preventing the refunding of workshops around the state, break that money loose. Tell the legislature and Governor Reynolds that could still put a lot of people back into positions before COVID. Instead of, what's going to happen if Elon and the little boys show up? It's going back in the sack and going back out to D.C. So that's not fair to the people here that it was meant for. Yes! All right, I am going to sit down, but you know my sentiments, and I'm so glad you all came out.
I'm really not a bad guy. How many people have seen the picture of Donald Trump, almost making love to a flag? Whose flag is it? It's our flag.
Our flag.
Whose flag? Our flag. Whose flag? Our flag. Whose flag? Our flag. Let's take it back, people. Around the corner.
Sorry to do that.
It's okay. Hi, everybody. Again, I'm Mike Owen. I'm from Common Good, Iowa. We were formed 5 years ago. A real smart deal. We formed an organization in the middle of the start of the COVID pandemic. But actually, we've been around much longer as 2 organizations that you may have been familiar with. The Iowa Policy Project up in Iowa City, and the Child and Family Policy Center in Des Moines. So we've been working together for over 20 years and then merged as this organization. We are nonpartisan and nonprofit, and we work a lot on fiscal issues and try to connect the dots to the services and the budget questions that are related to those fiscal issues. And that's what we're doing here today. It's kind of treacherous because, you know, I always have to try and keep the millions and the billions and the trillions straight in my head. My wife asked me the other day what our phone bill was, and I said it was $4.5 trillion. And I said, sorry, honey, I was looking at the House budget resolution. So some of those numbers, you know, we do like to try to illustrate a little bit how these numbers work in practice. The focus here, for me at least, is on the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, the so-called Trump tax cuts, which had real far-reaching implications, but are mainly expiring this year. And that's part of the budget fight or negotiations that are going on in Washington right now. So a lot of you got this handout coming in that we produced. Not everybody, and that's actually a good thing because that means that we had more than 200 people. To hear that there were 300 people here or more is really incredible. But this was based on the House budget resolution, which would continue to drive the deficits and debt of the 2017 tax cuts. It would continue the inequities that were created in this legislation, that the benefits mainly go to the wealthy. And it has very serious implications for a lot of the very important services that we have in our country, many of which have been discussed here and will be discussed. And we're talking especially about Medicaid and about SNAP and nutrition programs, and of course, you know, really everything in the budget, student loans, conservation programs, you name it. So let's look at the overall number here, because it's changing. This again was based on the House budget resolution. Just last night, the Senate came up with their own resolution, and now they'll be hashing that out. This was bad enough. We focused on the House resolution as opposed to the Senate one because the implications were a lot more serious in the House budget resolution compared to the previous Senate resolution. The Senate would do a couple of things here. It would make the cost of the tax cuts, it would raise them from $4.5 trillion that I just mentioned, that was not our telephone bill. It would raise it to $5.3 trillion. This is over about 10 years. The debt ceiling would be raised from $4 trillion under the House plan to $5 trillion. So they're, from the outset, acknowledging that this is continuing to drive deficits and debt, which is going to affect not only us, but certainly future generations to come. To get a sense of what these numbers mean, consider that extending those tax cuts from 2017 would mean to somebody in the top 1% of income, somebody making about $740,000 a year, would be a tax cut on average of about $62,000, as opposed to somebody in about the 60% of income would be making, somebody in that area would make, say, about $96,000 a year. they would be getting a tax cut on average of about $400. A friend of mine, who likes to deal with these things in terms of social math, he likes to talk about these things in terms of Happy Meals. And so he says it meant that somebody in the top 1% could get over 13,000 Happy Meals with that $62,000. They probably don't buy Happy Meals as it is. Whereas somebody at that lower level I just mentioned, somebody making $96,000 a year, would, with their tax cut, be able to get a Happy Meal about once every 4 days. So it's just kind of a good illustration of how these things work. So that's really on the inequity in this, is that out of that roughly 3.6 trillion that would be used to pay for 3.8 actually now of that would be used to extend those tax cuts, half of it, or at least 49%, so I'm going to call it half, would go to the top 5% of earners in the country. The bottom 95% get the rest. So we have something that's going to create a lot more debt. It's something that's going to be inequitable. And the most important piece of this is the third one, the connection to the things that we do with the money that is raised from taxes. You know, the only reason we have taxes is to provide services with them. And everybody in the room has probably 2 or 3 that they're especially interested in. The bills that are out there now would enable these kinds of tax cuts by cutting critical services. In the House resolution, it assigns about $880 million. Billion. Excuse me, thank you. Billion. Millions and billions and trillions. So you got about $1.1 trillion out of those would have to come from Medicaid and SNAP, the committees that govern those programs. And that's where it's going to get hit. So there is no way that those, you want hands off Medicaid, it's not going to happen in this bill. It has to hit Medicaid the way this bill is structured. So that's where we connect the dots on this. I just wanted to close by saying, feel free to go to our website, commongoodiowa.org. We try to put up information. We deal with a lot of organizations that crunch numbers as well, people we trust, and we try and get that information out there. So do that. But by all means, follow Sue's request and provide stories, because the impact on services is really the thing that people understand. I mean, we can talk about millions and billions and trillions of dollars till we're blue in the face, but it doesn't mean a lot till people see what they're going to lose, or what their neighbors or their kids are going to lose when these kinds of cuts come down. We're seeing it, you know, and one other thing I'd like to add is, you know, there's been so much attention to DOGE and how they're just going through willy-nilly and wiping out without any strategy, any real strategy or any sense of efficiency. They're wiping out these programs, and we're seeing that in real time. That's actually separate from this whole budget fight that's going on right now. So those services are so important, and we've got to make our representatives and senators understand why they're so important to us. Thank you very much.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm old enough that I had to take civics and those sorts of classes. And we elected our officials to go to DC and to take care of government programs. Am I wrong? Well, so what the hell is Elon Musk and Doge doing? How about a hey, hey, ho, ho, Musk and Doge have got to go? Hey, hey, ho, ho, Musk and Doge have got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, Musk and Doge have got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, Musk and Doge have got to go. Woo, thank you. And I'm sorry, I see people raising their hands for questions, but I'm asking people to write their questions down on cards and bring them up here. And quite honestly, I'm going to DC next Wednesday, and I'm going to take all this stuff to her office, whether she'll see us or not.
All right, very nice to see everybody. Especially good to hear from Tommy, given that farmer side of the local food for schools issue. I'd like to talk about it from the school side. My experience with it, being a former school board member here in our district, and this was one of my favorite things to learn about, is that our school district has participated in trying to buy fresh local food from our local farmers for quite some time. And as Tommy pointed out, this got a big boost during the Biden administration through the USDA to lift this program up.
What's your name?
My name's Frank Bros. And I want to point this out not just because it's a real tragedy that it's gone, tragedy for farmers, tragedy for students, but also because it's similar to a lot of other programs that schools take advantage of that are funded at the federal level. And seeing how quickly this could be absolutely deleted for no reason should strike fear into your heart as to what can happen to other programs that are federally funded in our local school districts. Part of when I was looking into the program, I learned a lot of the stuff that Tommy said, but I found this progress report from the Iowa State Extension Office for this first year that it came through, and it was very illuminating to me. And just from the school side, to add a little bit, there was over 100 school districts that have been taking part in this program. It's not just affecting a lot of farmers, it's affecting a lot of schools. And all this money went toward food and storage of food and distribution of food. It really wasn't something that was going to administrative costs or anything like that. It really was all very well accounted for. And the food involved too wasn't processed food. It had to be minimally processed. It was fresh fruits and vegetables. It was in some cases fresh meat, yogurt, cheese, stuff like that. All these things that our kids in school need nutritious food like that to be healthy and to learn. As Tommy said, on March 11th, it was just completely cut under the guise of waste, fraud, and abuse. And there was no waste. It was a big mistake. And in fact, when the Iowa State Extension Office studied the impact of this, what they found is for every dollar that was spent for the local Food for Schools program, you got $1.94 of economic impact positively in the local areas where it was used. That's right. And to me, the opposite of waste is an investment. And that's what this program was. And in fact, it was a small investment. In Iowa, you're talking about $600,000 per year that schools spend on this food. You're very rightly saying most of this stuff is millions of dollars, billions of dollars, hundreds of millions, hundreds of billions. And for a place like Iowa to have that kind of impact from a small amount and deleting it is just such a huge mistake, in my opinion. Huge mistake. And so what I want to point out too is this is a fairly small amount of money, but the National School Lunch Program, which is also through the USDA and impacts our farmers a lot, that is similar in some ways. It is funded through the federal government. It's on the order of $17 billion a year for the entire nation. But when you look at how easy it was to get rid of the local schools food program, which affected all students, rich and poor, and then you look at how a lot of the National School Lunch Program affects those families that need extra assistance, right? When I went to school here, approximately 25% of the students were on free and reduced lunch, which is, an indication that their families needed extra help, and the indication that some of those students, sometimes when they came into school, they wouldn't have had the nutrition that they needed, right? Now in our local school district that covers our county and pieces of surrounding counties, we're at approximately 50%. That's not been that long. We're talking about, 25 years difference. And many, many more of our students and families require programs like these to be able to get the nutrition that they need and their ability to learn. And as easily as this $1 billion went away, that $17 billion could also go away. And in fact, our representative, Marionette Miller Meeks, who I would have hoped would fight for our local farmers and our local students, I do not have confidence that she would raise her hand and say, you can't take this. I think she would be in favor of it. And I am sad to say that, but that's what I think would happen. So we need a representative who will not just raise their hand, but who will fight and say, you're not going to take the food away from the kids that need it. And similar to these programs, nutrition is important. Nutrition is a big part of it. But the more you get involved in our school, the more you see areas where this important federal funding lifts up students and helps families all over the place. We have an after-school program at Fairfield Community School District that is fantastic. It serves many hundreds of students throughout the year, and it kind of covers that time between when kids get out of school and parents get off of work. That allows a lot of parents to have more flexibility in their careers, for students to get extra homework help. And they get a snack, a federally provided, nutrition for some of those kids who might not have a lot for dinner when they get home. A lot of people, even people who are involved in that program, they see it as coming through the state of Iowa because it is administered through the state. You apply to the Iowa Department of Education, and that's who oversees the program. I think they do a pretty good job of overseeing that program. But that's not where the money comes. The money comes from the federal government, and it passes through the state. And I don't think that the people who cut this food for students would have any problem also cutting the after-school program for those same students. And that affects all those families the same way. And you can see this all throughout the district. There's extra support for reading. Maybe you've heard of Title I teachers. That's a federally funded program that figures out which students need a little bit of extra help with reading and takes that money, and it's intense. I'll tell you, I've been in there in the title reading room where those teachers are working very intensely with these groups of students. You'll have kids come in for 15 minutes, and they are just lifting them up with that money. And I think it could go away just as easily as the local Food for Schools program went away, and with as little of an objection from our representative. And so, this is one area that I've learned a lot about because I was on school board. I was very interested in learning about this. If I was on the hospital board, I could probably be telling you stories like this about the hospital. If I was in law enforcement, state and local, I could probably be telling you stories like this about that too. And it's important to learn about how these things work. It's important to talk to your representative and expect your representative to fight for these programs that are not wasteful, they're investments. And if there is fraud, fine, show it to us. That's not what we had here. So that's really all I wanted to say, but I'm glad to see you all here. It's very nice to hear from these other panelists, and I'm going to be looking for more opportunities to do things, to try to connect with our representative. I've had a hard time of it, as everybody else here has indicated, but I'm not going to stop, and I hope you don't stop either.
So, who in the room is a veteran? Raise your hand. Who has children or is a child? Keep your hands up. Who's a woman? Who's a worker? Who believes in education? Who thinks we need to fight for our LGBTQI plus rights? Who needs health care? Who needs public funds? Who likes to visit our national parks? Who likes to eat safe food? Who's on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid? Holy crap. That is what they are taking away from all of us. Who in this room had measles as a child? Oh, you're all my age. Speaking of which, I lived in Fairfield in 68 and 69. If anybody knew, my dad worked for United Telephone. Carol Birkenbosch was his name. So it's kind of cool. I have a couple, most of our comments here, our cards here are comments, but I do have a couple, and one is how will the tariffs affect us in the long run, like 2 to 3 years from now? We just did a roundtable with small business owners, and they talked about how the tariffs are going to affect them. My shirt is from Raygun, and they do everything in America, but the textiles that are used to make the shirts are not made in, they have no freaking idea what is going on in this country.
They don't care.
And they don't care. So I have seen so many Trump things with made in China on them that makes me want to barf. So anyway, who wants to talk about tariffs?
Anybody else have a card?
I can say a word about theirs. Go ahead, Mike.
I can briefly, and then I'll let Tommy talk. Tariffs, as everybody says, they're just another form of taxation, and they are going to hit anybody who has to buy things. Right? And you think about that sounds obvious, but that is going to be one more inequitable element of adding to the Trump tax cuts, is that people who don't have a lot of income pretty much have to spend it just to keep getting by. So they will be affected by those tariffs more than somebody who has enough income they can just sock it away for a while. That's going to be one of the immediate impacts that I would see.
Yeah, I'll just speak from the ag perspective. Tariffs are going to mean that farmers lose markets. We're going to enter trade wars. U.S. is a major exporter of our agricultural commodities. And the last time that this happened in 2016, we lost a lot of our markets for soybean and pork. Those markets haven't come back. So what happens when those markets don't come back? Then the U.S. government writes checks to the farmers because they've lost the market. So it just costs all the 99% of us that aren't farmers more money to then pay for the lost markets overseas. We also import a lot of our produce and the food we actually eat from other countries, so the grocery prices are going to go up as well. I do think this is a larger question for agriculture, and I do think the U.S. should focus more on domestically producing our own food.
Here's one for you. Why is no one addressing the blatant disregard for due process and the rule of law?
I could just say that's not my topic, but it's been for 50-some years, and exactly. I stay up at night and watch YouTube about what's happening with the judges. And when the Speaker of the House of the United States says maybe we should defund the courts because of these radical judges, that man belongs in a swamp in Louisiana. The rule of law and what's going on is exactly how our system and our Constitution says it's supposed to work. A federal court judge has a great deal of power. A federal court judge can enjoin something. I heard our good friend Ted Cruz the other night talking about national injunctions and that they're an abomination. And that's absolutely the wrong situation entirely. He doesn't get it, even though he's a magna cum from law school. He just doesn't get it. The whole idea that the House of Representatives, one branch of government, should interfere with the legitimate operations of another branch of government, as far as the judiciary, is just dead wrong if you really believe in the Constitution. And if he doesn't believe in the Constitution, he's just really misplaced. He should not be the Speaker of the House. That is something that Marionette Miller Meeks could do something about. They used to have about a 2 to 8 vote requirement to have something that would call on a new election for the Speaker. And I hate to think there aren't at least 2 to 8 House of Representative members in the Republican Party that didn't rear back and say that can't be right when the Speaker of the House is talking about defunding a separate branch of government. That's my 2 cents worth, okay?
Very good, very good. Can I ask everyone a favor? If you have a sign or can we hold them all up so I can get a picture of everybody waving?
This is what democracy is about.
Like this.
You gotta turn it around.
That's good.
Around the third right. Oh, turn it around. That's fine. Dear George.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Reminder, if you still have a postcard, I am going to take him to her office. I'm going to be there Wednesday. So I probably won't see her. I know Ashley Henson won't see us. And yes, I do. And if anybody has remarks. And I want to thank you all so much for allowing me to come back to your community and help with this. I think we should do a big ass rally sometime soon. So if you're sick and tired, what are we going to do? We're going to stand up, fight back. 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 Stand up. As the old saying goes, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. So thank you for your attention. Grab my business card, get in touch with me about your story, and I'll come back and help you with a big old rally.